Hello everyone, and welcome back to the classiest cavern on the World Wide Web. As some of you probably know, we've made a few videos discussing one major problem with the realistic racing game Gran Turismo 7 and how it would affect the game in the long term. That problem being the fact that Gran Turismo 7 requires a constant internet connection to access more or less the entire game. In these videos, we emphasized how these issues would cause needless inconvenience in the short term and major problems in the long term, emphasizing that anyone who actually cares about this game and the industry as a whole shouldn't defend the practice just because their company is doing it. Fortunately, it looks like we won't have to reiterate that point since players and journalists alike have already gotten a particularly unpleasant taste of DRM's ultimate downside.
The other super annoying thing is this game is inexplicably online only. Once that happened and I was offline, couldn't save you. You can play basically quick pickup races, but it doesn't even save your progress. It will not, nothing about progress functions when you're offline.
That seems so weird and unnecessary.
Yeah.
So Gran Turismo 7 was one game that I was very much looking forward to picking up on the PS5 and enjoying. But unfortunately, Gran Turismo 7's online DRM has completely ruined the experience for me. This is the latest in a very long list of egregious DRM measures and policies that have been put into video games, and in the case of GT7, really has no business being in a single-player racing game.
This does not work offline. I actually tested this. What you're seeing right now, if you disconnect from the internet, now this is if you unplug your internet or if Sony goes down, you cannot do anything. You can't access your garage, you can't take pictures of your car, you can't paint anything, you can't buy vehicles, you can't do anything.
There is one other issue I want to discuss. That is the online nature of the game. Essentially, GT7 requires an internet connection, and I'm not really okay with this as it's effectively DRM. So years later, if you wanted to play GT7 and the servers were offline, well, you'd be stuck.
It does have some significant failings though, including how it continues to cripple its career mode races with dreadfully flawed rolling starts. Its car list is no longer as comprehensive as the competition, and its always online single-player mode still seems needlessly punitive.
Starting with the influx of reviews released prior to launch, numerous outlets in the game industry took the time to express their contempt for Gran Turismo 7's artificially imposed internet requirements. Easy Allies, Dreamcast Guy, Digital Foundry, and even IGN highlighted the DRM as an active hindrance for the player experience. Worse still, what little the game permits players to do without an internet connection is even less than initially advertised. The arcade mode, meant to allow players to enjoy casual races without the need for an internet connection, was revealed to be even more restrictive than initially believed, only allowing players to access just 13 cars, a mere baker's dozen out of the over 400 cars in the full game, only allowing a fraction of tracks, and precluding couch co-op altogether. That's right, even split screen requires the internet. Anyone without a stable internet connection wanting to enjoy the game would essentially be paying $70 for a demo, making Gran Turismo 7 an even bigger con than Metal Gear Solid Ground Zeroes. You know a company is anti-consumer when they make Konami look good. As if outdoing the likes of Konami through DRM wasn't enough, Sony also decided to take a page from sexual abusers Activision and Ubisoft and sneak microtransactions into the game after reviews came out, deliberately undermining the ability of said reviews to accurately assess the game's merit in order to artificially increase the game's overall review score. Not only did they smuggle microtransactions past reviewers, but the micropayments themselves were far more expensive than in earlier games, with a 2 million credit payout costing almost half the price of the game itself. To put this into perspective, some cars in the game cost more than 10 million credits. Egregious as these financial fleecing practices are in a vacuum, they are even worse given Gran Turismo's in-game economy, a system built upon low financial payouts, high prices for cars, and time-limited artificial scarcity. It's a disgusting system put best by Easy Allies' review of the game.
Enter the microtransactions. Every time your in-game wallet pops up, a little button prompts you to top up on the PlayStation Store. It's easy enough to disregard, but thanks to the shop's limited stock, there's the suggestion that you might miss your chance. At times, you also receive invitations to purchase high-end sports cars. If you don't have an invitation, you can't buy the car, and each invitation has an expiration date, creating urgency to either grind it out or pony up the cash. It feels entirely manipulative.
But wait, there's more! While we initially thought that the repercussions of Gran Turismo's forced connectivity wouldn't rear their ugly head until years down the line, not even a month after launch, the other shoe just dropped. After informing players that the game would be offline for an hour in order to perform server maintenance, a problem that wouldn't exist if the game wasn't held hostage by its publisher through the internet, a bug in code for the concurring update to the game necessitated the servers remain offline until the issue was resolved. After all was said and done, the game was offline for well over 24 hours, making the game completely unplayable for all players for over a day.
And in other news, in case you missed it, Gran Turismo 7 was down for almost 24 hours. This is because of a significant patch update and server issue problems that led to the game just having complete downtime. This is tied to the fact that Gran Turismo 7 is a complete online-only game, meaning you have to be connected to the internet in order to play pretty much any of it. By the time you're watching this video, it may be back up, but a full 24 hours just after launch for a game you paid $75+ for? Come on.
As if that wasn't bad enough, it turns out that the update accompanying the server maintenance, an update that all players had to have due to the DRM of the game, decreased the potential payouts of multiple race events, making the game even grindier than before in a brazen attempt to further pressure players into paying real money for in-game currency microtransactions.
So this patch that was released for Gran Turismo 7 has reduced the payout for several races while fixing 2 late game races that were being used to farm credits due to a bug. So people were exploiting that bug so they could get more credits to earn these cars quicker. And no, Sony doesn't want you to do that, man. They want you to fork over more money than these $70 you spent for Gran Turismo 7.
Needless to say, people haven't exactly reacted too well to this, and as a result, customers have taken to review bombing the game in protest. Not only have these customer reviews plummeted the overall score of the game on review aggregator Metacritic, but at the time of recording, thanks to its always online DRM and manipulative microtransactions, Gran Turismo 7 has become the single lowest reviewed PlayStation exclusive game by customers in history. As one of the few channels to lambaste the game for its brazenly anti-consumer practices immediately after Sony's initial disclosure of DRM, it is incredibly vindicating to see this level of outrage being leveled at Gran Turismo 7, both in the lead up to and in the aftermath of the game's release. Not due to ego or because we want this game to fail, but because we want it to succeed. In the months following the always online Gran Turismo Sport, the relatively minor outrage leveled against that game's DRM was enough for Sony to patch it out. And a few years later, when the CMOS battery was exposed as a ticking time bomb that would ultimately brick every PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5 console, Sony responded by updating the firmware to prevent that scenario from ever happening. With these prior incidences in mind, the comparatively monumental protest towards Gran Turismo 7 should easily be enough to get the game patched for full offline play. And given just how massive the backlash has been, we may even receive a full re-release of the game with the offline functionality burned onto the disc itself. This may well represent a turning point for this industry. A game that could have cemented DRM as the way that racing games would be made from here on out has instead acted as a teachable moment for the entire industry. Now more than ever, it would be extremely unwise for any big AAA game to be released with any forced online requirements. But even so, we cannot sit by and expect the industry to do the right thing on its own. Along with continuing to voice our dissent for these practices, we must turn our attention to similar forms of customer exploitation and attacks on game preservation. From the continued reliance on day one patches to fix broken games shoved out into the marketplace before they're finished, to the reliance on online servers to download what should be housed on the physical disc. Beyond just the games, the platforms themselves must be taken to task. While Sony has been relatively decent in rectifying their issues in this area, Microsoft has not. Almost a decade after the backlash leveled against the always-online Xbox One, Microsoft consoles still stubbornly hold on to forced online requirements for both setting up the console itself and creating a user profile. There is still much to be done, but given the reassuring passion of the gaming community against the biggest racing franchise in the industry, and the claimed commitment of Microsoft to game preservation, we may yet prevail against draconian DRM once and for all. As for Forza Horizon 5, well, we'll get to you.